Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Atlantic Association, it's a pleasure for me, my name is Paul Brill, to welcome you at this online panel discussion about President Joe Biden's first month in office, particularly his first steps as a new player in world affairs. But do you think that the transatlantic relations are the main concern for the Biden administration, let's say in the first period of governing in Washington?
I think that if there isn't any, let's say, one focus that you could pick out from the early actions of the administration, but I think you can identify Biden's goals. Number one, return the United States to good physical and economic well-being, return it to domestic democracy, and also to international responsibility and respectability. And all of that is going to be built on a framework of multilateral cooperation, with the core of that being with American like-minded allies of the United States, which means the European NATO allies and the EU members. That a lot of the fundamentals are still there. I think that it's still true that it's very difficult to come up with a realistic alternative to NATO that works in some kind of constructive way for the United States. I don't see any outcome of the current debate that would serve our interests better than NATO continuing, with the United States being more predictable and providing leadership, and with the Europeans providing more effort and taking on more responsibility.
If you ask me what's the most important thing that I've seen, we've seen a foreign policy speech, obviously, by the American president. Very interesting speech. But I think the jury is still out. It's too early to already debate what is the most consequential step. That's too early. It's too early to say, early to tell. But there is a thing that I think we're all looking for or looking at, and that is actually China. China is the only thing that we should be debating right now. And in my opinion, the Biden administration, and you also see in the team that's being picked, we will see more of, maybe not the same, but we will certainly see a firm position by the United States on China. And what I would hope, and maybe the town hall meeting yesterday, I believe it was in Nebraska or so, is that it will be a balanced, non-ideological approach. For the US, as for the EU, there's actually no alternative to some form of coexistence with China. What we've seen, of course, is a military buildup. We see provocative maneuvers in the South China Sea, the increasingly repressive policies towards Uyghurs in the province of Xinjiang. Immediately in the beginning of the Biden administration, or even before Biden administration took office, we've seen a crackdown in Hong Kong. I think the previous speaker already mentioned what the Europeans did with the investment deal. I'm not so much one who immediately criticizes Europe on that, because I think we should not play second fiddle, and we've been debating this for seven years now. It is obvious that we should also make our own strategic, autonomous, if you want, decisions on an investment deal like that. But to me, what is important is that in this China-US rivalry, what we should have from the American administration, and what we should play into as European countries, is that we're not becoming the battleground for this rivalry. Therefore, we should find a new form of alignment with the United States on trade towards China. Remember that during the election period, Biden was trying to coin the phrase "a foreign policy for the middle class." Now, what is a foreign policy for the middle class? Basically, if it at all exists, then that is all about changing rules of the international trade so that they benefit your own GDP. This cannot be done by the Americans alone. I mean, Trump's only achievement vis-a-vis China was some kind of a bit of a bad trade deal that has to go into a second round, where China pledged somewhere about $200 billion worth of soya beans, and this is not helping us alone. Neither will going alone by European countries will help us alone. So we need to find some kind of a new alignment, and this new alignment cannot be a restoration. Maybe it needs a reset, but it needs a new approach with a more with a Europe that is more self-aware and is willing to find a new alignment with the United States.
Roberta, Haar, isn't it true that especially European countries find it difficult to recognize a geopolitical challenge and to see aggression where it exists? Is that true? Or do you agree?
I'm not sure if I agree with that. I think that if they are certainly partners with the NATO alliance because there was a direct challenge, and that's also what the long telegram is originally about, right? It's about the Soviet threat and understanding the true nature of what a Soviet Union is, and therefore we need to do something about that. And what I was thinking about, because I have not also read this article about the longer telegram, and I do agree with Han that we should avoid setting up some sort of ideological rivalry. But maybe the main point of all this is that we need a new grand strategy. We need some sort of cohering underlying basis and rationale for what the U.S. is doing or what it's doing with its partnerships. And I think that's what's missing here, right? That's what you had with the long telegram. It's about containment. It's about rivaling the Soviet Union that has one set of values and ideologies, and we have a different set of values. And this is also a little bit what Jake Sullivan wrote in this article that I talked about, The Atlantic, about American exceptionalism. He's also writing about that the U.S. needs a new grand strategy, and that we were always a little bit wrong when we said that U.S. grand strategy was only political or value-based. It's also economic. And he's talking about the economic aspects, and what Han has already brought up, this whole idea that we need to have a foreign policy that helps the middle classes. So if you understand the economics of in the past, that the U.S. Had free trade because it didn't have colonies and it wanted to open up the trading system so it could trade. That's a political economic policy. Or in the Cold War, it had a policy of growth or making the interior of America strong, or the West strong, so it could rival the Soviet Union. But now, if we have an economic policy that drives America, it should be something about fairness and equality and the middle class, and maybe making globalization work for everyone and not for only some part or the elites of the population. So I think that's what we need. Maybe the longer telegram can address that as a new raison d'etre or a new underlying meaning or strategy for the West that allows it to go forward and coherence of how they're going to meet challenges of the future together.